Welcome to the RDYTC. I'm your host, Paul Essen.
I'm Andrew Riley.
I'm Travis Santa Hudson.
Travis Santa Hudson, what are we doing this wonderful time of year?
Ho ho ho! We're finishing off our beer advent calendar in 2 more days. So we're on number 23.
23.
Nijuyon.
Let's see if Paul's wish comes Christmas wish comes true and this falls over on me finally.
Come on. Knock it.
I thought the
down.
Christmas wish he had was that he gives something that he gives the two thumbs up to. Maybe this is his two thumbs up here.
Aha, look at that.
We mentioned. I'll actually, go ahead. I'll talk about this later.
There's a horse on it, so my daughter would like this one. Fürst Carl? It's a
First,
Kellerbier. We had one Kellerbier before, I remember.
I was doing a little bit of research, and maybe Andrew's going to touch on this. We had one Kellerbier before. We all gave it a thumbs down. So
Yes, we have had a Kellerbier and did not impress us. Kellerbiers are typically going to be. So a Zwick'l Kellerbier is actually slightly different than a proper Kellerbier. I was doing additional research on it here. A Zwick'l beer is like the first taste test that the brewer takes off the thing and like scoops it up, and that tends to be a little bit weaker. The Kellerbier tends to be a little bit stronger, just because of how it is prepared. And it's called the Kellerbier because it's placed in the cellar where it lagers, it stores for a brief period of time, and because it is not pasteurized in any way, it's going to have a lot of cloudiness because it's going to have yeast from the brewing process left over in it, and therefore you're actually getting more vitamins. So it's a more nutritious beer if you are looking for a meal replacement kind of thing.
So
Yeah,
Keller,
a lot more going on.
so Zwick'l was not like a name. Zwick'l is actually a type added on top of Kellerbier. Okay.
Yeah, Zwick'l is another type. So this beer is brewed by the Schlossbrau Ellinge, which is in the city of Ellinge, which is south of Nuremberg in Bavaria. They've been brewing since 1690, and this one kicks in at a 5.1% ABV.
It's also handmade, handgewürlich, I guess.
Yep.
people use beer as meal
Again,
replacement.
we had that discussion earlier. How does a beer get qualified as handmade versus machine made, right? So where does that distinction come in? So yeah, we can see it's a little bit cloudier than your lagers or American lagers or your pilsners would be, because those tend to be pasteurized or filtered or cold filtered or whatever. So we're not getting any of that here. So it's going to probably have a warmer flavor, would be my guess. I haven't had a sip yet, and it's probably going to be a little bit stronger in flavor as well. Definitely some fruitiness on the nose.
Now, I will notice, like, because we've been talking about hazy IPAs, it's not quite. It doesn't have like a haze to it, though, right? I don't like the same way a hazy IPA does, but it's the unfiltered that's making it look like this.
Correct. I think I mentioned that I had my first hazy IPA fairly recently, and it was not a good experience for me. So
Right.
I don't know enough about the hazy IPA process yet. It's one of those things where it's sort of stormed onto the scene in the past 2 or 3 years, and it seems to be very, very popular on the West Coast. There's people out on the West Coast who I know love it. It's just not.
Oh, it is? It's interesting because the other name for it's New England IPA. There is actual
Maybe it
West
started
Coast.
there.
Yeah, because there's an actual West Coast IPA, which is like danker. That's the adjective I always hear attached to it.
Yeah, I don't want my beer to be dank. Thank you. I want
Yeah.
my memes to be dank, not my beer.
Now, to follow up on our statistics discussion yesterday, I should be fair and actually try one or two instead of just being like, oh no, and like treating it like any other IPA, because otherwise I would have never had my first hazy and be like, oh, this is actually good.
Yeah, it's definitely worth trying more than one, so you can enjoy. You can enjoy a lot of different flavors.
Yeah, so I think it was yesterday that we were talking about how there's only two beers left. I am the one of us that has yet to give an enthusiastic two thumbs up to any of these beers. I'm not sure if this is going to be one of them. Probably not.
But we can hope. We can hope.
We can see. But and maybe this is better served for like a recap episode or for the last episode. But even if the last two end up getting enthusiastic thumbs downs on my part, I don't think, and that would put me at under 50% for the beers that I've given a thumbs up. I don't regret this advent calendar at all. I'm actually, I could say something sappy about like, oh, I got to spend all this time with you guys and have all these laughs and great conversations, and that is all true. But even just taking into account the beers. Like, I've enjoyed being able to sample all these different types of beers, having a lot of different types that I probably never would have sampled myself. Realizing that there's something like a smoky beer, which I still think back to, like, wow, that was a really distinct type of beer, the Reich beer, Rausch beer, and finding in that finding like an IPA that I actually kind of liked, which is kind of eye opening as well. Yeah, even if I don't get that magical double thumbs up, it's been an enjoyable advent calendar for me.
I like the fact that while it's frustrating that we're very unlikely to ever be able to buy any more of any beer we do like, I would have never had any of these beers otherwise, right? So like, it's no different than walking into not even a local bar, just a bar, seeing something new on tap, getting it, having no idea where it's going to come from, not being able to find it on can. It's the same thing. So.
Yeah, and I feel like if we are able to do some research, and like Travis, for example, like the beer that you really enjoyed, you now know that if you ever see a Dunkel Bock Weizen Kellerbier, whatever it was, I know it was like 40
Weizenbock Hell. I'm not sure I'm going to find that, but yes, if I find a Weizenbock Hell, I know to snap it up.
Exactly, you know that's going to tickle your fancy, if you will.
The interesting thing about the one that I gave the very strong review to, which was yesterday's, it's just a Pilsner. And Pilsners are usually not going to be the ones that I'm so all about, because I love to have more heftiness. I like a darker beer almost always. So the fact that the Pilsner was the one that pulled it for me, I think it speaks a lot to the nature of the hops that they were using. So I really, if I want to look into that deeper, I need to find out what hops they're using and see if I can find some other beers that are brewing with that hops.
Do you think the hops they're using is dependent on geography in any meaningful way, or is it just that's what they happen to get at the Trader Joe's?
I think it must be, for them, dependent on geography. I think for newer breweries, it may not necessarily be that way, but they've been brewing for hundreds of years, so they would be somewhat more restricted in what they could have access to.
It also depends on, just like wine, with where they source their grapes. It would depend on where. It doesn't depend on where the brewery is so much as where they sourced the hops from. Like, and that can change. Like, you can have the exact same hop grown in different areas. Sounds like I'm talking louder tonight. I can hear an echo. But you can have the exact same hop grown in different areas, and it'll have different tastes. Just like you can have the exact same grape grown in different regions, and it'll taste differently just because the soil and air and everything, water, everything else.
Will the same type of hop in the same region taste different in different years, based on like rainfall and stuff as well?
That happened to Galaxy hops. There was a year where, like, it was like the year after Galaxy hops became super popular, and then so all the breweries bought Galaxy hops, and it was like a dead crop. Like, everybody just had to dump their beer because it was all terrible.
And
I think, I don't know what caused that one. Actually, shoot. I think there was a podcast where I listened to where they had a theory on like what had actually caused that to happen, but just depends on like if there's not as much rainfall the next year or something, and so like the grapes are the smaller, the hops are drier or something. I don't know.
I could easily see like earlier rainfall, later rainfall, a parasite or something like that, or particularally hot summer, particularly cold summer,
early frost, late frost. It's agriculture. It's science up to a point.
It's kind of amazing that plants can like survive various conditions like they can, or at least weeds. I don't know. Anything I've ever tried to plant and keep alive has never been able to survive. But
that's why sometimes I don't quite understand. And I understand like streets and driveways and like the house itself change the environment. But sometimes I don't understand people's obsession with raking the leaves. I'm like, you realize these trees were here before we were here. They had the same leaves.
It's not a hardship for the yard for those leaves to be there, but it is a nuisance for you to walk on. They get soggy and you can slip on them, and the slip and fall hazard is very real. If you have kids, you don't want them to do that. But it's also a sightliness thing. Some people don't like the looks of them. I think they look just fine, but I'll even rake my leaves without caring about that, because I need to make sure that as I walk around the outside of my house carrying a big load of stuff that I'm carrying at the back door, I don't slip and fall down and have the load fall on top of me.
Sure. Like I will blow them off like the deck, the driveway, and our sidewalk. Well, our sidewalk. We have a walkway that goes around to the side of our house. So in the scenario you just mentioned, I actually have a walkway. I don't have to walk on the grass, which I was very much against. That was actually a very good investment to install that walkway.
Meanwhile, I
wouldn't mind
absolutely
having one.
none. Yeah. Go ahead, Andrew.
Oh, I would not mind having such a walkway, but there's no room in the budget for the improvements to the house like that right now.
Yeah. Paul, do you even have yours? Is all like pine trees and fir trees and everything. Right? Do you even get leaves?
Oh yeah, we have we have a bunch of pine. So we have plenty of pine needles and pine cones on the ground in certain areas, and we have plenty of taller trees that drop leaves. And I've done absolutely no yard work whatsoever to get rid of them. And
you don't even cut the lawn. No. Okay. Oh, okay. You said you didn't get any. Okay. I thought you were going to say you don't do any yard work.
Well, I don't do much yard work either. But in particularly getting rid of the leaves, and I feel a little bit bad about that because a lot of my neighbors do hire like people to come cut the grass, and they usually come by and take care of the leaves too. And I'm just sitting here with my leaves sitting all over the place. But you know what? Like it's like you said, right? Like they're biodegradable. They're going to decompose. They're probably in the long run actually kind of good for the soil in that way. Mm-hmm. And I don't really see a reason for like getting a gas powered leaf blower that will pollute the environment, to put them in a bunch of plastic bags which are bad for the environment, to get hauled away by a garbage truck which is polluting the environment, to get rid of leaves that are natural. Like they're supposed to be there. But I don't know, maybe it's just me.
So, any first impressions so far?
I don't hate it.
I think I like it better than our last Kellerbier.
Yeah, I mean, I was expecting, maybe it's expectations, but considering we gave 3 thumbs down to the last Kellerbier, which I don't remember at all, unfortunately, so this could easily be just as bad, but expectations are different, but...
I remember that can that I held up thinking it looked like a ginger ale can more than a beer can.
I probably gave you the wrong first impression. I legit don't know how I'm going to end up giving it a thumbs up or thumbs down. Obviously, it's not too enthusiastic of a thumbs up, but it's also, like I said, I don't hate it. It's kind of bland, but I don't mean that as an insult, really. Like, it's I guess drinkable maybe is a nicer way of putting it, right? Like, it doesn't have a strong negative flavor to it.
It kind of reminds me, and I know we don't have too many. We only have one more episode for Andrew to come back with any research potentially on this. It reminds me a little bit of. I think there was another beer adjective in front of it, but a saison.
Ooh.
Which, from what I understand, a saison was it was a farmhouse saison, I think, which is kind of I think they kind of mean the same thing almost. I think a saison was basically season in French, and it's like something like. It was just like whatever was left over in the season that you would drink in the farmhouse type of thing, I think.
Yeah, I have no idea what a saison means, but I remember I had one at, I want to say Dogfish Head or something. It was some kind of beer-focused restaurant or brewery or something, and I really liked it. And I haven't been able to find a saison that I've liked similar to that since.
Yeah, I will say either it was my parents-in-law fridge, but I don't think it was, because we had a Hefeweizen that was just as far back, and it did not freeze. The saison froze in the can.
Oh, I've had plenty of things freeze in the can, like in a refrigerator. It's turned up too high.
Okay, I mean we've had other stuff in our fridge if it's shoved far enough in the back, but not in the one I keep the beer in, and I have beer all the way to the back. So, but yeah, that saison, like every one of them, because it was the first time I ever opened a can. And like poured it, and like it just kept fizzing and fizzing and fizzing and fizzing. It didn't explode or anything. But it was like, oh, that's what happens when you have a chunk of beer ice at the bottom of the can and you open it.
All the CO2 has come out of that portion of the liquid.
I feel like it tastes a little orange. Does anyone else taste a little orange, or is that just me?
It's got some fruitiness to it. I don't know orange necessarily, but orange makes a little bit of sense. I will just say that the lower the alcohol content, the more likely it is to freeze. So maybe that saison that froze was very low alcohol.
Yeah, it was probably like 4 or something, I bet.
You gotta man up and start getting some 8% saison.
Yeah, that's highly unlikely to freeze. Like our wife will keep a bottle of vodka for her baking purposes, in the freezer because
Yeah.
it doesn't freeze in the
That's
deep
where-
freezer. You know,
That's where we keep our vodka and our rum is in the freezer. And I think the first time my dad saw it, he's like, "It's gonna freeze," and I was like, "No, it's not gonna freeze, Dad. It's fine."
not in your household freezer. You can freeze it, absolutely, but you need to have much lower temperature.
All right, chemist. What is the freezing temperature of alcohol?
I don't know.
Of pure alcohol.
I do not know the freezing point of pure ethanol.
0K.
It's definitely above 0K.
It's somewhere between 0K and like 300K or whatever. Actually,
Whatever 0 for Celsius is in K.
yeah.
I think it's like 273. It's some weird number. I don't think it's a nice number.
Every single
it's-
number in temperature scales is weird. In my well, not every single number. There's two
Zero,
numbers that aren't.
0 and 100 makes sense.
Yeah, 0 and 100. But like every other like conversion and yeah.
Yeah, so why is 32 the freezing point in Fahrenheit? Well, so actually, the reverse question of that would be kind of, what's so special about 0 degrees Fahrenheit that they decided that was 0 degrees? That must be the freezing point of something else.
No, it's not the freezing point. My recollection is that it was the lowest recorded temperature in a city that had ever been caught. So it's like, this is as cold as it ever gets naturally.
But how are they measuring it though? If that's how they created Fahrenheit, what the heck were they measuring to say like this is?
I don't know if that's. I don't even know if that's true. That was just something I saw fairly recently. Like, I don't know why.
We're gonna start from here and work our way up.
It probably has more to do with the instrumentation being used. It's just like I'm going to build some gradient on my thermometer. Here's where the mercury sits normally, and I'm just going to start marking lines. And 32 happened to be at the freezing point, and 0 happened to be some other point. It's like it can't go any lower than this because this is the bottom of the thing, and the mercury is already bubbling out of that because I don't know, right? So does that make? There's no rhyme or reason to Fahrenheit.
And then the scientists finally got to the top of Norway, and they're like, "Ha! You're 0. We laugh at it."
They took a thermostat and they took it to Antarctica, and the penguins.
They shoved it up our Antarctica
And then they turned up the heat.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I was trying to go for, but I wasn't really sure where to take that joke.
I know he said thermostat on purpose this time.
Yeah.
No, they took a thermostat down to Antarctica. They turned it up, and every dad went down to Antarctica and said, "Wait, did you turn on the heat?"
I really thought you were going to go with a rock reference there. Like they took the thermostat down to Antarctica, turned it sideways, shoved it straight up their candy ass.
My kids won't cooperate to do rock jokes because I'll ask them a question, and instead of I think they Austin me because they'll say what? I'm like, damn it.
It doesn't matter what.
All right, guys.
I finished it. Oh wow. Andrew's the last to finish it. I think we know where Andrew's going with this.
I think that different time zones affecting his drinking speed.
Well, I'm going to pull back the curtain a little bit. Before we started recording, Andrew admitted to a little bit of pre-gaming.
That is true. I've had like 3 alcoholic beverages already today.
Mm-hmm.
Better be careful. You're gonna have some Reese's Pieces next.
I was going to say, he hasn't even had any penises yet. So.
No, I did have a Black Flag lager at dinner, but that was 2 hours ago. I'm good.
My liver hurts like just listening to this. Like I haven't been able to drink outside of this advent calendar. Like I had like maybe 1 beer outside of this advent calendar because just
5%, whatever.
Man, God,
I have 13% sitting somewhere in the back of my fridge.
Not frozen, probably.
Not frozen. That's not frozen. No, it's not.
All right, do I want to say anything more about the beers?
5.1%.
5.1. That's not bad.
It's good. It's for this type of beer. It's right where it needs to be. I don't want this to have any more alcohol in it.
I feel confident saying this is better than the other Kellerbier.
Yeah, I don't even remember it, but this has to be better.
Do you want to say anything?
Absolutely fine.
Absolutely fine.
It sounds like we should probably just go and give the thumbs up, a thumbs down.
Let's do some thumbs, and then we can talk about it a little.
All right. I gotta think. Okay.
You're the one that said we should do thumbs, Paul.
I know, but I legit don't know where I'm going to go with this. 3, 2, 1.
Oh, Andrew waited to see.
No, I didn't. I was going down.
Or is that West Coast time?
Yeah.
LA?
This time lag.
Yeah, it's West Coast, obviously, because my kids are still awake and are traipsing about and making my life a little more complicated here. So.
Paul, was that the first time you used your left hand? That was the first time I noticed your ring.
I've used it before, but not often. Yeah, that's my ring right there.
There you go. Yeah. All right, there's my ring. Andrew, where's yours? Oh, hold on. There we go.
Our powers combined.
None of them are showing up as good as they should. But Andrew and I both rock the Celtic knot.
Yeah, I just got.
They were all of them deceived, for there was another.
I'm pretty sure mine's just a golden band instead of a platinum ring. But okay.
So Andrew, why thumbs down?
Yeah, why are you wrong?
So ultimately, I enjoyed it, right? And this is, I agree, the better of the two Kellerbiers we've had in this advent calendar. Ultimately, it comes down to that distinction we've had before. Is this a beer that you enjoyed? Would you order it again? Would you buy it again? Would you buy a six-pack of it? And I would definitely not go out of my way to buy this again. And even if someone was offering me another one, I think I'd hesitate because I know there are other beers I would enjoy more. But it's not like, again, my thumbs down is not this was bad. This is a very, very, very weak thumbs down. But there's nothing here that felt beerish. Like, I sat down to drink a beer, and I wanted to drink a beer because I wanted to spend some time drinking a beer with you guys, and it just didn't convince me of its worth.
So I know at the top I said the cloudiness, or like not even the cloudiness. I basically compared it to a hazy, like saying like it wasn't. I have a feeling this is kind of in a way like similar to why you didn't like hazies, because I can see I do see a lot of the hazy IPA in this, like down to like Paul mentioning about an orangish, like, and that's most hazies have some sort of citrusy, like from mango to passion fruit to orange to whatever, like in it. So that's what it kind of reminded me of. So yeah, I actually liked all the notes in it.
Yeah, and I will say it's also a very, very traditional beer. Like, if you were to go back in time and drink a beer at the ale house 500 years ago, this would be something you'd probably pick up pretty easily, and it's just fine. We've modernized our beer tastes somewhat, and so I have as well, and I tend to like some of that new stuff, whereas this just hits a lot of those traditional notes. So I think it is good in its own right, but not what I am looking for right now, at the very least.
Yeah, I think it strikes. Sorry, Paul, if you have anything to say, jump in. But I think it strikes a good middle of the road, kind of between. It's not the crisp, refreshing, clear, whatever that you would expect from a filtered beer, right? This is clear. It clearly says unfiltered, but it's not like heavy and like munchy like a stout or something like that. It does strike, which again I keep bringing up hazies, like is like kind of the same zone that they fall into, where they're slightly thick is like the best adjective I can think. They're not like a puree or again a stout or something like that, but
I would say it's surprisingly unchewy for the yeast content that remains in this. Like, it's unfiltered, and yet it was very clearly, a beer that we're drinking rather than, sometimes you get a very heavy stout and you're.
Well, okay, yeah. So that's why I said not chewy, but it wasn't like all the Hell's lagers like that are just like
yes,
just like very smooth drinking. There was a little bit of friction to it. It's hard to describe. I don't know.
Yeah, I think Travis touched upon something I was going to mention, and that was that it's not quite as crisp and refreshing as some of the other beers we've had, but at the same time, it still felt very drinkable to me. I had no problem finishing my beer. I was enjoying it, and it didn't have a nasty aftertaste. Having said that, this is probably my most apathetic thumbs up yet. Like, I could very easily have gone thumbs down. And to use the analogy that I've been using all throughout, if I went to a bar and ordered this, I'd be like, yeah, sure, give me another one. But if they had given me something completely different, I would have been like, yeah, I'm good with that too. Like, I'm not going to miss the beer that I ordered, and I'll try this new one instead.
The bar just gave you the wrong beer, and you're like, F it, whatever, I'll drink it.
Basically, yeah, like, this is probably the better decision because, I'll have to try something else. It was, I think I used earlier on that it was bland, and I said I didn't mean that as an insult, and I still don't, but it was just very unmemorable, but in a drinkable way, right? Like, I enjoyed it enough. What?
It didn't get in its own way.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like it wasn't crisp, wasn't refreshing, but it also wasn't offensive, and that made it drinkable and fine. I think fine is a good word for it.
For me, there was enough flavor in it without it being hoppy.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have a hard time going out of my way to pay $2 a beer for this.
Okay.
That's another way of looking at it.
Yeah.
It's absolutely in part of this package. Glad to have the experience. Would absolutely drink it. Put another one in front of me. I'll drink it again later on. But choose to do it for $2. I'll pass.
Don't go drink at a bar if you're expecting to pay $2 a beer. Just to warn you.
This whole experience has been so much cheaper than most bar experiences.
Yeah,
and we're getting some quality out of it.
All right. Any other last words before we sign off?
We got one more to go.
One more to go. This is exciting.
Let's make it special.
Tomorrow is Christmas Eve.
Yeah, you got all your Christmas shopping done?
I better, right? Because
all my shopping done. Yes, all my wrapping will be done at like 11 o'clock tomorrow night.
All right. Well,
sounds fair.
Don't forget to, in the Christmas spirit, give a gentle massage to that subscribe and like button, and we'll
jingle those bells.
Yeah, that is a thing. Jingle the bells. Sure, that's even better than doing a gentle massage. And we'll see you tomorrow night for our last episode. Can't stop the discourse.